Hey friends, Mira Scarlett here, and today I'm going to show you my attempt at creating a Yuki Inoue inspired standalone collar. What makes it even more fun is that I'll be working with a material that I have never worked with before, which is PVC vinyl. So basically plastic. I've been wanting to work with this shiny, see-through, futuristic, non-stretch looking fabric for a long time now. I've actually had this in my storage for about a year or two at this point, and when I saw Yuki Inoue's work while scrolling on Pinterest, I immediately got inspired to create something. So basically this video is the process of how that went. So let's get started. I started out using a standalone collar pattern from a blog called 3 Sheets. I'll provide a link in the description below for anyone interested. I then cut out the 2 pieces of the collar, one being the collar itself and the other being the band. To achieve a similar look to Yuki Inoue's collars, I plan to add some extra length to both pieces. Using some muslin or scrap fabric, create a quick mock-up. Each piece will need to be cut on the fold. I added 1 inch to the bottom of the collar pattern where the collar points are. For the band, I added 2 inches. That way I would have enough room to add multiple snap buttons later. Now we have our altered collar pattern. Now mark the midpoint on your pattern piece and line them up and get ready to sew. Once sewn, you can check the fit and size and make sure that it's what you want. Looks good to me. Now it's time to transfer our pattern to our PVC vinyl. The stuff I have is in a super cute pink magenta tint. Lay out your vinyl as flat as possible and fold it in half. Then cut out 2 of each pattern piece on the fold, giving you a total of 4 pieces in the end. Before continuing, make sure your PVC pieces haven't picked up too much dust, pet hairs, or other debris that like to stick to it. You want to do your best to avoid getting any trapped inside of the collar. Now that the pieces are nice and clean, we will start by sewing across the sides and bottom of the collar. Sewing PVC can be a bit tricky because you can't use pins without leaving permanent holes in the vinyl. I also didn't use Wonder Clips because I didn't want to worry about the possible indentations staying in the vinyl. Luckily, the vinyl sticks to itself and it doesn't stretch, so with the help of a walking foot, it glides through the machine quite easily. I also advise using a longer stitch length, so your stitches won't become a tearaway perforation in the end. These were my machine settings. I really love the way the stitching looks on this stuff. Unlike when we sew collars from typical fabric, we won't be turning our collar pattern pieces so the seam allowance is on the inside. I tested that and it just wrinkles way too much. Not to mention the collar points would be a nightmare to try and turn. Instead, we'll be keeping it as is and trimming down the seam allowance so it's closer to the stitching. Doing it this way helps it maintain its crispiness. This is how it should look. At this point in the process, you can do a quick check to make sure you are still happy with the size and shape so far. You also are at the most exciting part of this project, figuring out what to put inside. Yuki Inoue's collars were filled with beautiful flowers and even candy, but today I'm using fish bait, which turns out is actually freaking gorgeous. They're so precious and glittery. And wiggly! This is what happens when I'm sent to Walmart, or any store for that matter, by myself. I will wander off and find something pretty that I want to use in a project one day. But oh boy, am I happy to have it today. I'm going to arrange the fish bait lizards in a decorative manner that complements the collar. Line them up as evenly as possible on both sides. So classy.
So squishy.
Once you have filled your collar with whatever trinkets your heart desires, you can get ready to sew on the band. To do this, you're going to sandwich the top of the collar, the part we haven't stitched yet, between the two band pieces. Sew it up. Before moving on, we are going to once again trim the seam allowance from where we just sewed, close to the stitching. That way, it will be less bulky and easier to shape. Use your fingers to press the seam down as flat as possible to prepare for top stitching. You definitely do not want to iron this material. We are going to top stitch close to the seam on the band side, which will help the collar maintain a more neat fold along the band. It also looks awesome. Once again, use your fingers to help mold the PVC to shape, which is coming along really nicely at this point. Now it's time to visualize the placement of the snaps. I'm using Drit's 5/8 of an inch heavy-duty snaps. Put your desired snap close to the edge of the collar so you can figure out where the stitching should go along the band closure. Once determined, sew it like this. Then trim the edges. Do this to both sides. Finally, the last part to sew together is the bottom of the band. And the collar itself is done at this point, except for adding on your trendy snaps. Pop them on with a hammer and snap tool, or pick up some heavy-duty snap pliers like I did. Thank you, 50% off Joanne's coupon. Once you've manhandled your snaps into place as evenly as possible, you are done! Now, let's see how it actually looks when worn. Guys, I am honestly in love with how my Yuki Inoue inspired collar came out. It gives me some like serious cyber goth vibes mixed with 90s Lisa Frank and Claire's aesthetic, and I live for it. I've always enjoyed working with stretch vinyl fabrics, so stepping into the realm of PVC vinyl has been really, really fun. It's also insanely satisfying to sew, okay? I love sewing this stuff so much. However, it is really important to note that PVC, otherwise known as polyvinyl chloride, the production of it is very bad for the environment. So, as Annika Victoria has said before, don't make your entire wardrobe out of it. Not that you would want to, because the stuff isn't exactly comfortable. It kind of stabs into you, it's not breathable, it doesn't, doesn't stretch at all. So, yeah, not exactly the most comfortable, flattering, easy to work with material, but honestly, the end result is really cool, especially if you're into like stuff like this. Like, if you grew up wearing those jelly shoes from back in the 90s, then I'm sure you vibe with this. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you're interested in catching more in the future, you can click that subscribe button as well as that bell notification so that you'll be notified of all new video uploads. Thanks again for being here, guys. Stay safe and stay crafty, stay creative, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!